Welcome to EPG Pathshala. I am Dr. Neeru Tandon from Department of English, VSSD College, Kanpur. We are doing the third paper, 19th Century English Literature, and this module number 23 on Lewis Carroll has been written by Dr. Jaya Kapoor. In this module, we will discuss the works by Lewis Carroll through the Looking Glass. The author of Alice's Adventures in Wonderland and Through the Looking Glass, Lewis Carroll, is a pseudonym. His real name was Charles Lutwidge Dodgson. Dodgson first used BB to sign his non-professional writings, but in March 1856, when he wanted to publish his poem Solitude in the magazine The Train, Edmund Yates, a magazine editor, thought that this one was not appropriate. So he took this name, Lewis Carroll. The Dodgson came up with Dares, but that one was also rejected. Finally, he invented Edgar Quetelet's, Edgar U.C. Westhill, and Lewis Carroll, that he translated his name to Latin and back, Lutwidge, Ludovic, Louis, Charles Carolus, and Lewis Carroll. Yeats chose the last one. For his learned mathematic books, Dodgson used his own name. The book opens with Alice sitting with her cat and its kittens on a snowy autumn evening. She is talking to the kitten about playing chess and pretends that the kitten understands the conversation. And then she turns to look at the image of the room in the mirror and speculates how the room in the mirror would be like if she could enter it. She gets to meet the White King and the White Queen and then reads the poem Jabberwocky. She then slides into the garden and meets the flowers who talk to her. The overbearing tiger lily, the snobbish rose, the chattering daisies do not make a very friendly reception party but do lead her to the Red Queen. The Red Queen takes her to the hilltop and she gets to view the land which to her delight and surprise is laid out like a chessboard and a game is in the progress. She wishes to join the game and the Red Queen sends her off into it. She finds herself in railway carriage which is supposed to take her to the next move but is moving in the wrong direction. She meets strange people as co-passengers, a man in white paper, a goat, a beetle, a horse. They carry huge tickets and she is reprimanded by the guard for not having one. The train then jumps in the air to move into the next square. Here, Alice finds herself in a jungle talking to a gnat about the size of a chicken and becomes melancholy and sheds tears when he cracks jokes. She sees other strange insects like rocking horsefly, bread and butterfly, snap dragonfly. The gnat talks to her about a place where people would lose their names and in a blink, Alice moves into the text square which is such a place. She met a fawn there who came very close to her and walked through the forest with her. But as soon as they had left the forest, it remembers that she was a human and ran away from there. She now reaches the road with two finger posts pointing in the same direction and leading to the house of Twiddledee and Tweedledum. As they discuss who is a more likable character in the song, she sees the Red King snoring like a steam engine. They tell her that the king is dreaming and Alice might just be his dream, and if he woke up, she might disappear. This is a very interesting point in the story, since actually the entire sequence is a dream of Alice and the king would disappear if she woke up. Alice tucks her dress and hair in place. The queen offers to make her a maid for jam tomorrow and jam yesterday, but never jam today. Alice is baffled by the offer, and even more so when the queen tells her that her memory works backwards as well as forward. She cries out for a pinprick she has not yet got, and her cry is like a steam engine whistling. Then she gets the prick and does not cry because she has already done the crying for this prick. As Alice begins to cry, she consoles her and asks her to believe impossible things and tells her that she used to believe as many as 6 impossible things before breakfast. In one of the best examples of a dream sequence, she finds the shop turned into a boat and she is rowing with the sheep in a boa. After some rowing and plucking of scented rushes, the water and the boat disappear and she is again in the shop, where 2 eggs are sold cheaper than 1 if she eats both. The shop disappears when she moves into it and she finds herself with the egg she wanted. Only the egg has grown huge and turned into Humpty Dumpty. So you can see that this story, which tells about Alice's dream, is in fact not limited to her dream only. The reader is utterly confused whether the dream is in the story or story is in the dream. The reader tries to understand the utopian things that are being told. Alice, who wants to go somewhere, goes somewhere else. Whether it is a game of chess that is being played or she is just a puppet in that particular game, there are many things to be explored. Further, in the story, when there comes the white knight who also keeps falling from his horse on his dead, he challenges the red knight. They have a duel of a strange kind in which both constantly fall from the horses on their heads and begin again unhurt till the white knight declares a check and the red knight leaves. The white knight is discovered to be an inventor of strange things and seems to hoard even stranger things in the bags like beehives and mouse traps. He sings a song for Alice and takes her to the last square where she becomes the queen. She discovers that she has a golden crown on her head. She meets the 2 queens who go off to sleep while talking with her. She then enters a room where there is a celebration of her becoming the queen going on. The rule of the celebration is that you are introduced to every dish and you don't cut what you are introduced to. So, Alice is left without any food. Suddenly, she discovers that all the guests have turned to dishes, and the entire cutlery and the crockery is beginning to occupy places on the table. She shakes the Red Queen and discovers that she is sitting in a room and shaking up her kitten and continues talking to the cats. Now this story, which apparently appears as a child's story, this appears as a game, this appears as a chit-chat, has got something more about it. Let's try to understand this theory which was put in this story by the writer. As far as the setting of the book is concerned, the book is set in an evening in autumn when it is snowing outside and Alice sits with her cat and kittens by the fireside. The setting is different from the Wonderland book, which was set in a warm sunny afternoon in a garden. The setting can be seen as a growth from the earlier book and also as being a more mature in treatment with humor that gets darker than the earlier book. Within the narrative, the setting is of a massive chessboard spread over, and this chessboard is spread over the world where all these people seem to be participants in a massive game of chess. Once again, the idea of maturity comes in. But it could also be looked from the perspective of the fast developing political situation across the world, where colonial powers were expanding their bases and getting involved in a struggle to influence ownership of resources. Now you see that a simple story has got inherent meaning in it. Allegorically, this story is representing a very serious issue. A trivial, looking apparently as a trivial story, has got serious aspect to discuss. In fact, writer is trying to discuss the politics of the world through various allegorical forms. Another important thing that writer has discussed in detail, without which the novel remains incomplete, is the game of chess. Both the Alice books are based on popular games of the age, cards and chess. When he wrote the book, the children he wrote them for were grown up and able to understand the relatively more complex of the two games. The game was also better suited to the theme of growing up. The world of the adults, with its mind-boggling etiquettes and dimensions the growing up child is introduced to, is felt when Alice exclaims, I quote, "It's a huge game of chess that's being played all over the world," unquote. The action of the book is built around a game of chess in which Alice begins as a pawn, and after getting over various stages, in which after encounters with the varied and delightful characters, she finally becomes the queen. Now you see that Alice, in this journey where she starts and finally where she becomes the queen, she comes across so many characters, and every character has some message to deliver. In this particular story, when writer wants to tell you about the politics, he makes Alice say that this is a game of chess which is just playing worldwide. What he wants to convey, that a different kind of politics is there, and everybody wants that one should become a queen or one should win the game on their terms and conditions. Another theme of a dream and idea of time is infused. The journey that begins as a dream has all the makings of a dream. In fact, the sequences have been found by critics to resemble the nature of dreams, where people and events of real life often get transformed into strange things, without an iota of doubt coming about their existence in such a form. The trains jumping in the air, the queens transforming into a goat, the shops turning into a boat in a river and back into a shop, and finally that thing in the part where the people are becoming dishes and vice versa are a few instances. Now you can see that these strange things, first of all, they bring laughter. When at the first time reader goes through this story and finds it a child's play, he feels happy and smiles. But later on, when he tries to understand it properly, then there are sub-meanings and inherent meanings in the sub-meanings as well. The food is turning into something else, and she will be introduced to certain food items and she won't be able to eat them. It represents something that the things that are in front of you, it's not necessary that they are for you. Some critics relate this preoccupation with dreams to Carroll's problem of insomnia. Time in this mirror word moves in a strange way. All the songs about the characters, about Humpty Dumpty, the Lion and the Unicorn, Twiddly-dee and Twiddly-dum are about what happens to them eventually, and they have a foreknowledge of the poem and their fate, which they discuss with Alice. People as children are introduced and already well versed with these characters or Humpty Dumpty and other characters, and so they can relate themselves to these characters in their own ways. I am just going through certain things from the book itself. A hill can't be a valley, you know, that would be nonsense. The Red Queen shook her head. You may call it nonsense if you like, she said, but I have heard nonsense compared with which that would be as sensible as a dictionary. Unquote. A boat beneath a sunny sky, lingering onward dreamily in an evening of July. Children there that nestle near, eager eye and willing ear, pleased a simple tale to hear. Long has paled that sunny sky, echoes fade and memories die, autumn frost have slain July. Still she haunts me, phantom-wise, Alice moving under skies never seen by waking eyes. Children yet the tale to hear, eager eye and willing ear, lovingly shall nestle dear near. In a wonderland they lie, dreaming as the days go by, dreaming as the summers die. Even drifting down the stream, lingering in the golden gleam, life, what is it but a dream? Now, another points that describe the novel and give you the feel of the novel. I quote, "Let's pretend that you are the Red Queen, Kitty. Do you know, I think if you sat up and folded your arms, you would look exactly like her. How would you like to live in Looking Glass House, Kitty? I wonder if they'd give you milk in there. Perhaps Looking Glass milk is not good to drink." And certainly the glass was beginning to melt away just like a bright silver mist. In another moment, Alice was through the glass and had jumped lightly down into the looking glass room. There were chessmen, they were walking. "Here are the Red King and the Red Queen," Alice said in a whisper for fear of frightening them. "And there are the White King and the White Queen sitting on the edge of the shovel. And here are two castles walking arm in arm. I don't think they can hear me." To continue with the texts as excerpt, I will quote, "It's only the Red King snoring," said Twiddly-dee. She checked herself in some alarm at hearing something that sounded to her like the puffing of a large steam engine in the wood near them, though she feared it was more likely to be a wild beast. "Are there any lions or tigers about here?" she asked timidly. "The rule is jam tomorrow and jam yesterday, but never jam today." "Am I addressing the White Queen?" "Well, yes, if you call that addressing," the Queen said. "It isn't my notion of the thing at all. I have been addressing myself for the last 2 hours. "Living backwards?" Alice repeated in great astonishment. "I never heard of such a thing. But there is one great advantage in it, that one's memory works both ways." "I'm sure mine only works one way," Alice remarked. "I can't remember things before they happen." "It's a poor sort of memory that only works backwards," the Queen remarked. She was now working with 14 pairs at once. "You may look in front of you and on both sides, if you like," said the sheep. But you can't look all round you unless you have got eyes at the back of your head. Humpty Dumpty sat on a wall. Humpty Dumpty had a great fall. All the king's horses and all the king's men couldn't put Humpty Dumpty in his place again. That last line is much too long for the poetry, she added. Yes, but then I came and rescued her. He drew up at Alice's side and tumbled off his horse just as the Red Knight had done. Then he got on again. He was dressed in tin armour which seemed to fit him very badly, and he had a queer-shaped little deal box fastened across his shoulder upside down and with the lid hanging open. Now you see that this particular book and this particular scene can be best understood if you have a knowledge of chess. If you feel that the White Queen, the King and various other characters, you can transform them with the chess play, then things are easy to understand. The most fascinating aspect of this book, and still the most frustrating aspect of this book, is the way Carroll used words. Humpty Dumpty says that he can make the words mean exactly what he wants them to mean, can open the debate to various ideas. Such is the language. Time and again Alice remarks that the conversation around her is very strange, very nonsense, very improbable, but there does not look anything of the kind to the characters who think it is Alice who needs to correct herself. The tiger lily tells Alice that flowers in Alice's world do not talk because they make the beds too soft so that the flowers are always asleep. That is the language, and this is the way how things are being conveyed. The language plays, and one thing means something else. The puns on the words nobody and beds are just two examples of the way Carroll plays with words. The Queen in fact advises Alice that she must train to believe in improbable things. Why? Sometimes I have believed as many as 6 impossible things before breakfast. So if you want to be in the Alice's Wonderland, if you want to be in the glass that Alice was looking into, so you must try to understand the improbabilities. The thing that Alice understands is of no significance that was significant for the other characters who were there. There is a food motif in the book. This brings us to a very humorous aspect of this book, food. The strangest things are happening around food throughout the book, sometimes leading to very humorous situations and at other times also pointing to the society. When Alice gets thirsty after running hard with the Red Queen, she is offered such a dry biscuit that she all but chokes, and then the Queen inquires, "Thirst quenched?" Things get more and more strange when we find that the rocking horsefly feeds on sap and sawdust. The bread and butter fly has wings of bread slices and head of a lump of sugar and feeds on weak tea and cream. The Queen offers Alice a remuneration of jam every other day, but that day is never today. So she could offer her jam either yesterday or tomorrow, not that day. So that day never comes. The egg in the goat's shop turns into Humpty Dumpty. The cake offered to the lion and the unicorn is to be passed before it could be cut, and then it cuts by itself. The pudding that the White Knight invents is made from blotting paper, sealing wax and gunpowder, among other things. The strangest is the party in honor of Alice becoming the Queen, where the rule is to be introduced to every dish and then never to eat what you are introduced to. So Alice remains hungry over there. The soup, the mutton leg, the pudding and many other dishes laid out on the table are ultimately uneaten, as an argument breaks out and the party breaks up. Alice therefore comes back without getting anything proper to eat or to drink. The tables in the Victorian dinners were similarly overflowing with food, while another part of society subsisted on the barest minimum, and women in the higher sections of society were encouraged to eat less for cosmetic reasons. Now, this is the point that writer wants to draw your attention towards it. That this was a very important point. Many authors like Addison and other authors also discuss this point, that ladies in 18th century and in the 19th century were advised to eat very less, because being slim was the criteria of looking good. Being slim was the criteria of being beautiful. So because of that, men all the time keep a check on them that they should eat less. This factor is just being discussed by the author over here through the Alice's story after becoming a queen. Another aspect related with the food motive is that when on one hand there are people who have this much to eat that is going wasted. The tables are loaded with food but they are not eating it. On the other hand, who are really hungry, they can just see that food but cannot eat it. So this book had interest for small children who took it as a fairy tale. And this book was also there for the readers who could understand the pun in the novel, who could understand the inherent meaning being conveyed by the writer, the social message which is there to be conveyed. For further reading, please consult e-text on the site of EPG Pathshala. Thank you for visiting EPG Pathshala.